Let's get ready to rumble!
Good morning, and welcome to Did You Know? The Easter game show for the whole family. I'm Terry Teflon, and with me is my assistant, Angus Grouch. Now on today's show, we'll be focusing on a specialist subject shared by our three guests, the first Easter Sunday. Would you welcome our guests? Caiaphas, the chief priest, Lyle Lightfingers, and Helen from HR. Now, Caiaphas, can I call you Kai? You had a front row seat at the trial of Jesus, but how will you do on the resurrection section? And Lyle Lightfingers, you had a front row seat at the crucifixion of Jesus, hanging up there next to him, but not sure you saw what came next. And Helen, from HR, not sure why you're here, 2023 years after the event, but welcome. Now, the rules are simple. First on the buzzer gets first chance to answer. Our first question picks up the action on that first Easter Sunday. Did you know who was first to the tomb on that first Sunday morning? Was it A, the Easter Bunny, B, Roman soldiers doing a security sweep, C, Peter and a couple of the disciples, or D, a lot of people called Mary?
It was the Roman soldiers, of course. We made sure there wouldn't be any fantasies about this Messiah wannabe rising from the dead.
I'm afraid that's not correct. There you go. I'm afraid that's not correct. You're quite right. You did ask for a guard for the tomb, but strangely they had run away.
So I wasn't there on account of hanging on a cross, but if I was the Easter Bunny, I'd want to check out the competition. Lock in A, the Easter Bunny.
Sorry, Lyle. Rabbits don't lay eggs or get much of a mention in the Bible outside Leviticus 11. Yes, Helen from HR?
When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise. They were on their way to the tomb. The answer is D, Terry.
Woo! That's correct. That's correct, Helen. So we have Helen from HR leaping into the lead in the first round. Now, we'll be back in just a moment after a quick word from our sponsors.
I don't normally get applause when I come up here, but I'm liking it. So the first question, who was first? If you have kids, or you're a kid yourself, you know that one of the most important questions in a family is, who goes first? Who goes first? It's a matter of great importance in family life when it comes to ice cream, opening Christmas presents, sitting in the front seat of the car, which is a current problem we're having, or being the first to track down the Easter eggs in the backyard, but not in the church foyer, as Joey just said right now. The only time that there isn't a race to be at the front of the queue is bedtime, or lining up to do the dishes. But it's the same for us, I think, in our lives as well. It's the same at work. It's the same maybe not at work. It's the same at the buffet, at an intersection. We're all trying to be first. When it comes to that first Easter Sunday, it was a really different kind of first that happened. Being first was a really different choice that day. To be first meant seeing Jesus in whatever condition he'd come down off the cross. That's not a being first that you take lightly. Being first could only mean sadness and grief. But great grief and great sadness is only possible with great love. And so someone was first. Now Mark's gospel is the gospel we've been hanging out in this Easter. Mark has already been sowing seeds for this moment, providing us with signposts in the text, if you like. In Mark 14:50, in the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus is arrested, Mark tells us that everyone has deserted him and fled. I guess they left first. So it's significant that by the time we reach Jesus' crucifixion, we discover in Mark 15:40 that some have stayed. Some have remained. Some women who were watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the younger and of Joseph, and Salome. Now in Galilee, these women had followed him and cared for his needs. And many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem were also there in this moment of crucifixion. And then as the day ends, and as evening falls, Mary, Jesus' mother, and Mary Magdalene are still there amidst the chaos. Following on behind Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus as they take Jesus' body to his tomb, to the family tomb of Joseph's family. So they know where Jesus is buried, and they know where to find him 3 days later. And so, it's these women who are first. They're the only ones left. It's these women who are first, motivated by love, a love which has seen them journey with Jesus for these last 3 years, along with his disciples, a love which meant they stayed when others left. And it's almost too much of a leap for us, I think, to understand how significant it is that Jesus appears to these women before anybody else. But it is typical of how Jesus related to people and to women. It's a very typical mode for Jesus to be in. He doesn't treat women in the expected, dismissive way that might have been expected. He honors them. He values them. He includes them. And it's such an important part of the good news that was announced that day, that God uses all people in his story. That it's not about popularity or influence or status or how much you have or who you are, who you're related to. It's not about that. It's about faith and love. And these women had plenty of both. And so they were first. There's a challenge, though, for us, hidden in the text, hidden in the midst of this account. You see, we all want to be first. The question is, which line are we standing in? Which line are we standing in? The line which leads to Jesus' tomb? Or the line followed by those who fled the crucifixion? See, the women who went to Jesus first call us to be first as well. First in line for love. First in line for faith. First in line for service. First in line to simply be with Jesus. We've got some other questions that we're going to explore as we continue this morning. So back to the show.
The question is, did you know? who rolled the stone away from Jesus' tomb? Was it A, the Easter Bunny, B, an earthquake, C, an angel, or D, Goliath?
Dude, I want to say the Easter Bunny because, I don't know, chocolate eggs. But I'm going to pick Goliath.
Goliath, let's lock that in. I'm sorry, Lyle Lightfingers. I'm afraid Goliath had a pretty bad track record with stones. It wasn't him. Caiaphas.
Philistine. Goliath? Ridiculous. Actually, we weren't sure what happened, which is why we invented the story that Jesus' body was stolen. The Easter Bunny.
I'm sorry. Helen from HR.
Actually, this was a question that the Marys asked themselves while they were walking to the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. Lock in C, an angel, Terry?
C, let's see if that's correct. Whoa, that's great, correct. That's 2 in a row for Helen from HR. Now it's time for us to pay our bills again with another word from our sponsor.
Our second question, who rolled the stone away? What did they discover? Because as the women walked, they had a question, a did you know? And I'm sure the intervening days leading up to this moment had brought many, many questions to their mind. How did it come to this? Why did Jesus have to die? Wasn't there anything that we could have done to stop it? The question as they walked is a far simpler one. Who will roll the stone away? Was their question that they asked to each other. And it's a good question because if the stone remains in place blocking the entrance, they will not be able to get to Jesus. But that question and some of the other questions they've been asking these past days are about to get answered. You see, the stone is already gone from the door of the tomb. And it wasn't a small stone. It was very large. But it's as if their question about who will roll the stone away has become the least important question that's being answered that morning. Because there was someone else already there. And they might have had questions about how they would get past the guards that the Roman governor had put on the tomb at the request of the chief priest. But it wasn't the soldiers. Instead, they saw what appeared to be a young man dressed in white. Now, none of the gospel writers name him as an angel, but their descriptions all line up. This is an angel. And he had some rather different answers, I think, than what they were expecting. Don't be alarmed, he said. Now, I've just got to share this with you because this is something that has always bugged me. I don't know about how angels are trained, like what their training schedule is, but they all seem to say the same thing. Don't be afraid. Don't be alarmed. Fear not. So I'm assuming it's a training manual thing that they come out and say them one of the most ridiculous things that you could ever imagine in customer service when you're confronted by a large, scary, angelic being. And when the opposite is what almost always happens. Panic, fear, alarm, people screaming. Yeah, I think they need to work on that. It's the same for the women here. But the answers that they get are hopeful. They're astonishing. Could it be true? Could it be true? The angel says, you are looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. See, they get to see with their own eyes. Jesus is gone. He's gone. They get to see the linens that he was wrapped in that are still there. He is risen? He's risen? You know, it's really interesting that even in the earliest Jewish sources that we have, even the Jewish authorities, even Caiaphas and his cronies, never questioned the empty tomb. It's something that is attested to by the earliest witnesses. The tomb was empty. The stone was rolled away. And the angel reminds them of something Jesus said way back in Mark chapter 9 when they were together in Galilee with him. This is what was said. Jesus said this to them back in Mark 9. He said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise." But they did not understand what he meant and were afraid to ask him about it. So they had questions then too, back in Galilee. And now these questions were being answered. Jesus is alive. He is risen. And it's as if it was all meant to be this way. All the questions of the preceding 3 days being answered. Jesus had answered their question even before they asked it. And now the memory of that teaching comes flooding back and they recall the moment. Jesus is still answering questions, sometimes before we ask them. He doesn't just want us in the story as a background character. You're doing a good job, by the way. He doesn't want us to just hold up applause signs for other people's lives. He wants us deeply involved. He wants us to know him. He wants to give us a new life. He wants to surprise us with the answers he has, moving heavy stones, bringing us back to life. He wants to surprise us with the answers, giving us fresh purpose even. You see, there's one more thing the angel said. "But go tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." Their task is not finished with simply seeing. They get to tell others, to answer others' questions, to be first with the good news. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm just overcome with expectation as to whether Helen from HR can possibly win. So let's go back to our quiz show.
Welcome back to our final round. It's a bonus round. All of our contestants are in with a chance still. We're moving to the end of the story as we move on to our Did You Know What Happened Next round. Contestants, are you ready? Hands on buzzers. After the woman spoke with the angel, did you know what happened next? Was it A, Thomas played a game of real-life Operation? B, the woman ran away afraid? C, Jesus appeared to the disciples? Or D, the Easter Bunny? Caiaphas.
I've always liked Thomas, throwing a bit of doubt into the mix. The answer is A, Thomas.
Lock in A, Thomas. Nice try, but Thomas didn't get stuck in his doubts. As soon as he saw Jesus, he was all in. Lyle.
So I wasn't there on account of being a little dead at the time. But I'm feeling that my luck is about to change. Lock in D, the Easter Bunny.
Lock in D, the Easter Bunny. I'm sorry. Happy Easter, Lyle. But I think your luck is about to change in a big way. Helen.
Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. The answer is B, Terry, but I'm a little confused about the ending.
Lock in B. That's correct. The story's a cliffhanger, Helen. Can't wait to see what happens next. Will you give it up for our winner, Helen from HR? Please join us next week, same time, same channel, for a brand new series called Life on the Mission. I've been your host, Terry Teflon, and now one final word from our sponsor.
Let's give a proper round of applause to our cruise masters. And the most important people in that whole thing, the tech crew at the back, who've done an amazing job holding it all together. Well, this question about how the story ends is a real one, particularly in Mark's gospel. Mark's story feels like it's a real cliffhanger. Do you know how it actually ends, Mark's gospel? Here's how it ends. Verse 8, trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Full stop. It really is a cliffhanger. Is that it? Is that where we're going to be left? And sometimes you'll see in your Bible an addition, an added ending. And it's probably the same kind of concern that we have, an editorial concern. That can't be the end of the story. And so they assumed that probably the ending got lost, and so they wrote another ending. But the earliest texts that we have, the earliest manuscripts that we have, don't include that original ending. So as we engage Mark's gospel, we're left with this question overhanging. Is it true? Has he risen? Well, the answer would have been known to those hearing this gospel for the first time too. The answer is yes. And I encourage you to go and read some of the other gospels for their ending. John's gospel, which ends with a fish breakfast. An amazing story of restoration for those who were first to leave the scene of the crucifixion. Really worth a look. Or maybe Luke's gospel, which tells of a surprise appearance by Jesus at a dinner, where Thomas doesn't actually need to put his hands into Jesus' wounds. The sight of Jesus is enough for him to believe. Or Matthew's gospel, which really helpfully tells us what happened next. Here's what it says. So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly, Jesus met them. Greetings, he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, do not be afraid. Kind of reading from the same script as the angels. It's clearly a training manual issue. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, where they will see me. See, they don't just see where Jesus wasn't in the tomb. They get to see Jesus himself. And when they see him, they fall to their knees and they clasp his feet. Now they know he is risen. And so they worship him. What a moment that must have been. They are first. They're first to worship. Their deepest questions answered. A genuinely breathtaking moment for them and their lives. And in some ways we see all that that has gone before as they have followed Jesus faithfully these past years. But there's a sense in which they weren't first. We don't actually know whether his name was Lyle Lightfingers. Scriptures are silent on that. So we don't know whether he was named that or even whether he was a thief. We don't even know who he was. Tradition sometimes describes him as a thief, but often in the Gospels we see him described as a rebel. So he may have been one of Barabbas's men, but he faces his own moment of truth when he's crucified next to Jesus. What an astonishing experience as he faced his death. And there were two of them. One of them who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. It's an ironic, bitter request. But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said. Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said, Jesus, remember me. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. See, this man, he knows more than many of those who were there that day. He even manages to recognize Jesus as a different kind of king. Not the king who was being crucified for a political crime, claiming to be a political rival to Rome. He sees him as a different kind of king. And even as he faces the worst, he somehow understands and even has an expectation that Jesus will come into his kingdom. And he utters a really short but quite revolutionary prayer. Remember me. Remember me. Probably the shortest salvation prayer on record. Remember me, Jesus. And it's not a question. He doesn't ask it as a question. It's not another did you know kind of moment. He knows. But Jesus answers him anyway. Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. For this man, it's not the end of his story. It's the beginning of his story. Imagine in that moment of death, coming to that place. This is the amazing truth of the death and the resurrection of Jesus. It's not the end. It's the beginning. It's the beginning. It was the beginning for them, and it's the beginning for us. Because we also get to share with them being first in Jesus' memory. We too can say that prayer. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. The answers are available, my friends. And it's not a cliffhanger. Jesus is alive. And he can live in each one of us. Would you pray with me? Father God, we are so grateful that you so loved the world, each one of us, and all that have ever lived in human history and all that will live. You loved so much that you sent Jesus, that each one of us might experience the fullness of life that he offers, the forgiveness from sin that he offers, life in all its fullness. And so we pray, remember us, Jesus. Remember me.